I love that response because I think it has so many golden nuggets to like what agents need to succeed and why agents fail, right? Because I think one of them that you mentioned, that shiny object syndrome, not going after the new shiny thing, because I always say nothing works unless you do, right? And anything can work if you do. Also, the investing in a mentor and understanding the big picture, because that's another, that the whole penny wise, pound foolish, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't want to give up a percentage of my commission to a mentor or someone because I need to keep, but I'm like, 100% of zero is still zero. So if you haven't already heard the stat, about 87% of real estate agents fail out of the industry within the first 5 years. And Karen Stone with me today has actually not just survived, but thrived in this industry over the last 16 years. And she's completed over 600 transactions. She's the co-host or host of American Dream TV and just an amazing person and agent all around. She has some of the most creative marketing ideas. So I'm super, super excited to chat with Karen today and learn more about her career and her experiences and share with you all to see what you guys can learn from this industry veteran who's thrived in this business and is a little bit famous within the Angle Invokers network, honestly. I feel like everyone knows you in Angle Invokers and in the Tom Ferry world, right? So if you're in the real estate industry, you've probably heard of, seen, or met Karen already because she's very active in the real estate industry. So excited to have you. Thank you for making time, Karen. And let's just get started.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, of course. I was like, you're like one of the top 3 people I thought of course, like literally, which is why you're interview number 2. I was like, I have to chat with Karen because I feel like you're just a wealth of knowledge. And the whole point of this is to inspire and educate other agents. And I feel like you embody that like collaboration over competition so much, like the way you're always involved in these like agent industry groups and events and, you're always sharing your best practices. And I take a lot of your printable materials whenever we meet and like I give them to my team and I was like, we should recreate this map like Karen. So of course I had to have you.
Thank you.
Anyway, yeah, you're welcome. I know. I was like, I'm so excited. Okay. So can you share how you got started in the industry and how you got to where you are today, 16 days later?
Yeah. So I got a degree in marketing from Indiana University. I'm originally from California, got my degree, worked for Disney in LA, then moved to New York to work for Nickelodeon Consumer Products, then lost my job in 2007. And my parents kind of bribed me. They said, go take a class, whatever it is. They were like, just go learn something and you'll meet people, right? I think they were more worried about my social life than my business life. And they said, how about real estate? Why don't you sign up to take the classes? And if you pass the test, we'll pay for it. And jokes on them, because I don't think either of them saw me actually doing this as a career. But it was actually my boss from Nickelodeon who said, this is an obvious industry for you. And I was like, what? Like scratching my head. What do you mean? And she goes, well, you really like marketing and you like working with people. So it makes total sense. So it took me a few years for that to finally like kick in and be like, oh yeah, like I get to do the things I actually enjoy doing. So yeah, 16 years later, recessions, changing markets, I've somehow survived.
Yeah, surviving through different market conditions is definitely super tough. I know. I forget how many. They said like a few 100,000 agents dropped out last year, actually, because 2023 was such a tough year. So that's definitely something major.
Yeah.
Did you start with a mentor on a team or did you kind of just wing it on your own?
So I started in March of 2008. Phenomenal time to start in the business because I had no idea what the peak years were like. So I've been through this cycle many times before, so I'm not afraid of it anymore. And it was maybe August or September that the girl that I was actually sitting next to, who was ahead of me by about 2 years in the business and only a month younger than me, she asked me to be on her team. This was her first time building a team. However, it wasn't like, there's no traditional team structure, but she and I worked very parallel businesses. So she mainly held me accountable. She asked how many people I was taking out and she had certain kind of challenges for me. And it was because of that accountability that I hit some goals that I might not have hit without that kind of mentor. And she threw me a lead once in a while, but basically we ran very parallel businesses. So she wasn't really showing me all of her systems. She wasn't feeding me leads. It was more about that accountability. And I was the only one on her team. So it was more of it wasn't really a partnership, but she was my mentor. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love that you share that because I think accountability is so important. And like, especially in this industry, like I'll be the first to admit, like I've had times where I'm like, I should do this. I want to do this. And then I don't do it. Right. And so it's like, and I've heard from a lot of agents, and I think their biggest like struggle and challenge is often accountability and time management. So, I mean, on that note, I'd love if you can elaborate like over the years, what accountability or time management tools or courses or whatever programs you've been a part of have been the most helpful for you?
I would say getting a coach was was the biggest game changer for me. It's almost 10 years ago now, where I went to a Tom Ferry conference, and it was actually called Sales Edge, run by Bill Pipes. And I like challenged the guy sitting next to me, who was an agent back in New York with me. And I was like, if you join, I'll join. And he ended up dropping out in like a year, but he had way more accountability and way more systems than I did. But it was really being around people who were focused and we all just kind of held each other accountable. And I think that's truly what helped me. As they say, like the best athletes don't get to be the best athletes without a coach. So having a coach to me seems like a no-brainer. So that really changed things. And with that, came the 5 a.m. call, where I was now, being held accountable to be up at 5 a.m. And eventually I would lead the calls. So I had to be up even earlier. I had to write the scripts, and I truly had to believe what I was saying, right? So I had to do research, I had to believe it, and then I had to say it. And that helped me get to yoga at 5:45 in the morning, right? So all of it led to, the coach was kind of the boat, but then I had all the different fishing lines out there with all the different podcasts and books that Tom would recommend, and podcasts that other agents would recommend, and the 5 a.m. call, and all these things just kind of cumulatively helped me get to 16 years now.
Yeah, I love that you shared all of that, because I'm in total agreement, right? It's one of my favorite sayings is it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And so the fact that you're taking the time to find the coaching resources, to find the podcast, to read the books, and do all the things, right? Because it's the other saying I really love is formal education will make you a living, and self-education will make you a fortune. So it's when you invest in yourself the way you have, that's how you survive and thrive.
Yeah.
So let's see. Next, I wanted to ask definitely mindset is key, right? So what was the most expensive property you've ever sold? And can you share the story of how you got that buyer listing? Is there a fun story here?
So the most expensive listing I ever had was, it was a roundabout way of getting the listing, but it was a $14 million listing out on Long Island. I'm an agent in Park City. I'm licensed in New York as well. I get offered the chance to represent this seller on behalf of Concierge Auctions, actually. And so this was a property I had never touched this price point. I've shown, listings like this. I've seen listings like this. You came to visit me here in Park City, and we saw one for 25 million, one for 50 million. So I'm not intimidated by it. But unfortunately, the sellers just didn't quite listen to what we had to say. And we fired them pretty quickly, and they ended up selling it for $4 million a year later. So probably was way overpriced to begin with. We know that it was way overpriced, but it was still a very cool opportunity.
Yeah.
And, I would love to take another one of those on. And again, it didn't intimidate me like I think it would a lot of agents, but I knew I had the tools to get it done. I just needed the seller to take our lead.
Yeah. To be realistic. And I feel like there's so many follow-up questions. I told you this was going to happen. I was I feel like there's going to be follow-up questions.
Let's not dive into that one too much.
Well, I think so.
That one was a little controversial.
I think there's a teachable moment there than that. I think a lot of agents, one, they think like luxury and like high price points are like amazing and you want them. But a lot of times, like these high price points, they have unrealistic pricing expectations, and you could spend all this time and you could spend the money on marketing and they could just not price right. And I've witnessed that more than once. And it's happened to our team too, where they're just like, it's like, okay, maybe it's worth 5 million, but they want 7 million. Or like, that's a 2 million spread. Like, things like that where it just, and so luxury sometimes isn't all that glamorous because of the amount of time you spend.
Yeah, exactly. I used to think, when I first got in the business, I was in my 20s. I had this limiting limiting belief that because I was so young and could hardly afford to live in New York to begin with, nobody would ever want to work with me. So I did 35 rentals in my first 9 months of being in the business, which was 2008, which was a lot of transactions, right? That's a lot of transactions considering there's no Zillow leads, there's no nothing. Like this was like running open houses and Craigslist, basically. I had no sphere of influence. I had very few contacts that could afford anything.
Wow.
So I learned like, okay, like this is a price point that I'm comfortable with. And then slowly I started to realize like, if you just add an extra zero, like these people put their pants on the same way, like, yeah, they have bigger budgets and they might have different levels of expectations and they might have more advisors around them. But ultimately, like person, house, find a match. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Person, house, help to sell it. Like the marketing is relatively all consistent. It's just, there's just a different strategy of pricing, different strategy of communication, but ultimately we're all people,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you share that like so vulnerably, because I was like, I agree. It's like in the beginning, we have a lot of like limiting beliefs about things where we think we're not good enough. And then like, it's all in our mind. And one of my friends, like I've been quoting him all the time, he calls it suffering from self. And I'm like, I love that. Like a lot of us suffer from self, and it's like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. And it's really, when you work on your mindset, you can do it all once you get over that limiting belief, right? And also, I love that you shared how you were on Craigslist. I was like, I feel like that dates. I was like, I remember Craigslist like before there was. Now it's like all social media, right? I was like, I feel like people don't realize how good we have it with TikTok, with Instagram, with YouTube, and with all these platforms now that we can attract our ideal client. And like by sharing our personality, by sharing information, by sharing our personal brand and building that versus like meeting rando strangers on Craigslist. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It was
like a hustle.
It was such a hustle. And I did it. I mean, this was before you could actually schedule the post. So I used to get up and I think I posted at like 7 a.m., maybe 8 a.m. So I had to get up early just to make sure I had the post ready to go.
Yeah. That's so crazy,
and I think it was like $7 a day. So, I mean,
and that was New York City,
that was cheap, right? Yeah, for client acquisition, that was really cheap.
Yeah, no. I remember when I was in New York City, I started my career in New York as well. And when I first started, I was in commercial real estate. So they made us foot canvas buildings post 9/11. We literally had to pick an office building. We had to pick 3 a month. And we'd have to walk every single floor, talk to every single business owner because I was doing office leasing. And somehow finagle our way past security post 9/11. So it's like the hustle, right? No. It's like, I think there's no such thing as an overnight success. I think that's the lesson here. Like there's no such thing as overnight success. It takes that consistency, that accountability, and that willingness to put in the work like you did. Like, willing to put on Craigslist ads if you have to. And I don't know if what would be the equivalent in today, like Facebook Marketplace, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I'm like.
No, I couldn't even, what's the equivalent today? I mean, door knocking, I would say, right?
Yeah.
And it's like literally back to basics, right? Like that was the basic. And that was in vertical living, right? I couldn't door knock there. Mm-hmm. So, you could get to know the doorman, but you couldn't door knock. So I have very, I guess, skewed ways of doing business because I had so many limitations in the city. So many.
Oh, yeah.
No. Yeah. No, I can't see you. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Is this working now?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's working, I guess. My IT support. He didn't even do anything. It just works when he comes over here. I'm like, it's like the
Please.
printers that stop working when like, you're about to go to a client meeting and you want to print something last minute and you're like,
Yeah.
it decides not to work right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you.
Tech doesn't like me. Tech likes him for some reason. Cause I was like, what happened? It just like froze on me. Okay. It works. Now we're good. I really, really hope that first part like recorded properly and like saved because it was really good.
If not, we can always redo it. I know the stories. I know the script.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's continue. Let's see. So the next one is, so in your opinion, what are some reasons that agents fail in this industry? And on the flip side, why do you think you thrived? We talked a lot about the thriving part though. So
yeah, right. So I think that most agents, they look at the shiny penny and they think that's going to help me. Whether the shiny penny is a new tool, a gadget, like a gimbal, right? The gimbal's going to make my videos so much better. So therefore people are going to watch my videos, right? Or they see people on stage and the person on stage like basically gives their playbook and they think I'm just going to copy it. What they fail to recognize was the 99 steps in between or more, right? Of like the person testing it out, failing, finally getting something that's winning, right? And I think the other reason is they don't have a mentor or somebody coaching them to kind of keep them focused. So I have been through so many coaches and each of them showed up exactly when I needed them to show up, depending on where I was in my business. But, sometimes one of the best coaches that I ever had said to me, Karen, you tried that before, right? I can't remember what the generating tool was. He's like, you tried that before once, right? And I said, yes. He goes, and did you like follow through with it? I said, no. And he said, so then stop doing it. Let's focus on something else. So like I think as like agents, we think like this is the one way to do it, the one tool I should be using. And we fail to really like go like dig deep and think, do I like doing this? Is there anything that I could be doing that maybe it's joining a team versus doing this alone? Maybe, like when I moved to Park City, I begged them to put me on a team. I said, I'll put my ego aside. I've been in business 13 years. I certainly have something to bring to the table, but my learning curve was so big after coming from New York that I was like, please, like I need a mentor. I need it fast. I need to learn it fast. And it might come at a cost financially, but the gain is ultimately so much greater. So I think that like putting that ego aside and checking myself and being like realistic, like, okay, I might not be at their chapter 20. I can only say I'm at chapter 1 and take where I'm at and be comfortable where I'm at and work my way up there. You there?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it still record. The good thing about this program is even if it freezes, it should still record and like, cause it records locally and it uploads to the cloud. So that's the difference between this and
cause you're kind of fuzzy to me. Yeah,
you're fuzzy to me, but like it's the actual recording will upload a clear visual and audio because it like uploads, basically it's recording locally on your computer and uploading it to a cloud. And so when we do finish, like we just have to make sure that the upload bar on the top is like 100%. Yeah. So that's a good thing, but it is kind of, but it froze a few times, but I still heard the gist of what you said. Okay. I was like, yeah. So, I mean, I love that response because I think it has so many golden nuggets to like what agents need to succeed and why agents fail, right? Because I think one of them that you mentioned is really important is like that shiny object syndrome and not going after the new shiny thing, because I always say nothing works unless you do, right? And anything can work if you do. So if you just put in the work, and I'll be the first to admit, like I've been guilty of it where I'm like, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this. And I don't execute because I don't want to do it. I don't like it. It's not in alignment with me. Like for me, for instance, like I hate cold calling. Like it's not my thing. Like I can do it. I'm not going to enjoy it. I much rather go to a networking event, create content, like connect with referral partners and do those kind of things. And that is in alignment with me. It brings me joy. It's like things that I like. And so I'm not going to just cold call all day because that's not me. Right. So I love that you share that, the whole shiny object syndrome thing. And then also investing in a mentor and understanding the big picture, because that's another, I'm in agreement with that. The whole penny wise, pound foolish, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't want to give up a percentage of my commission to a mentor or someone because I need to keep, but I'm like, 100% of zero is still zero.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
the same way, where I started on a team where so I had a mentor, and then I was in a big company, CBRE, it's a commercial real estate firm, right? And so I was 50-50 with my mentor, and then 50-50 with the company after that. So I got like 25%. But
Yeah.
I got to work on some epic deals. I got amazing mentorship. I learned so much. I cut my learning curve probably in a third or something of what most people in the industry. And so I thought, in hindsight, it's so worth it. And like, I'm still like on good terms with my mentors that I started in this industry.
Right.
We
It's
are on
not
the
for
same page on
forever.
that.
It's just,
Yeah.
I was on the first team for like 2 years. And then I just realized like she wasn't bringing me the value I needed anymore.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting the points I needed for like, to go towards my broker license. So I actually had to leave if I wanted to get that license.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And that's really important, I think, to share too, that like what gets you to one point is not necessarily what gets you to the next level. So you might need a certain team, or you might need a certain brokerage firm or whatever in the early stages.
Yeah.
But then once you get to like a certain level, you might have to switch to a team or brokerage that is more suited to help you scale that business. So
1,000%. Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah. And so so as a brand new agent, I know you mentioned Craigslist for some of them. I was going to ask, like, where did your first clients come from as a brand new agent? Like maybe your first buyer, since I know you mentioned rentals from Craigslist. And then where did your most recent 5 clients come from? Because you moved to Park City with no sphere, really no circle. Like, so you had to build from the ground up. Like, what lead gen strategies have been most effective for you starting over?
Yeah. Yeah. So in New York, when I got started, my first rental was a walk-in. I wasn't like on floor duty sitting at the front desk, but I think the broker was like, going through a rotation, and whoever was in the office, like he would just rotate the walk-ins, like who would get them. So that was my first rental client. My first buyer was a renter, like on a Thursday. On Friday said, I want to buy something. On Monday, I took him out to see properties. And by Wednesday, we had an accepted offer. So he came out of nowhere. And and then my first
That was in
listing
New York,
was, no, it was in New York. And my first listing was a referral from somebody. I don't remember who exactly, but she actually chose me because it was an Upper East Side listing. And I walked in looking like a normal person. She was a normal person, but apparently the agent before me walked in wearing like a fur coat, and she goes, "You're just a real person." Like I didn't mesh with the other person. Like she was a little too fancy for me. So that was my first listing, which was awesome. In Park City, you say that I started from scratch. I did, but I like to say I started from experience. So because I had already
That's a better
built
way to say it.
somewhat. Yeah, I had already built a sphere of agents who know me. As you know, like I have a lot of marketing materials out there. I'm very active within the industry. So people already knew me. So I really did start to get most of my business from other agent referrals. It's taken me a while to kind of break in within the inner circle of the Park City area. But I actually did 2 deals last year because I offered on Nextdoor. This was like my secret, my magic potion. And whoever's listening, I encourage you to do this. It's like all profit. On Nextdoor, we had gotten our valuation notices, and so many of us had these drastic increases, which then increased our taxes. And so because we're a non-disclosure state, people can't just go on to Zillow or Redfin, or even if you're not in a non-disclosure state, like the process is still like, it's still really challenging for people to find comps that are specific to them, specifically for an appeal. So I put out there on Nextdoor and very, very few agents caught on to this, I will run comps for you. I will send you the report. There's no cost for it. I had them fill out a form. I know everything. Like, I know a lot about their house. I know like what's been upgraded, what hasn't been. I know the community. I ran 330 reports in 6 weeks, which the average agent does maybe one a week. But I knew like, I don't need to get this right at 100% because I've never seen the house and I haven't seen a lot of the comps. So it was kind of like, I could be totally wrong, like a weather person. But I followed up pretty much every other week with a video like, hey, I got this question. Perhaps you're thinking the same thing. If this relates to you, then watch this video. And I did this consistently throughout this process with reminders. This is how you send in your appeal. This is what you do based on their response, etc. And I got 2 listings out of it already. I'm in the process of pitching a $5 million property who did not have a direct contact with an agent in my market. So figure that 330, there were probably about 400 people who initially like asked for comps, but didn't fill out my form. And maybe they just, you know, again, I'm in a second home market, so maybe they just didn't want to go through with it. But these are all people who clearly, I would guess, did not have a great relationship with their agent. Maybe their agent's no longer in the business. And so now guess who's the person who's providing them the value? So I actually have a closing today. And after today, that'll be over 80,000 in GCI, not in GCI, in my net take home from that one lead generation tool in, you know, since July. So,
that is
not terrible.
80,000 in GCI since July. So that's only like 6 months, 5 months. Okay. So
it's not even because they were due in September. They were due in September. So like, think about it. Like July to September is when I have to do the work. Yeah. And now I already have 2 deals going on more. And I purely went into this, and I want people to know, like, unlike when most of us are trying to tell us, like, guess what? Your property is worth more than you think it is. I had to prove to them that it was worth less, right? So the exact opposite. And I assumed that most people were not going to be selling. They want to be here. They want to continue owning. So I did not go into it thinking like I'm going to get a listing. But thankfully, you know, one person refers me to another person, refers me to another. And so now, literally, like the other day, I posted on Nextdoor, hey, everybody, I'm doing this again while it's fresh in your mind, before you have to like scramble to get your appeals in order and get the comps. Let's start running this. So I already have a list of about 10 people already to run comps for this year. So these are all people in Park City who have raised their hand and said, I want to follow the value of my home. So they will.
Okay. So yeah, I really love that you shared about how that one client really liked who you are as a person because she like connected with you, right? And I think you're amazing at this, is that personal brand. A lot of agents, I think, are afraid to show their personality and who they are and like be authentically them. But when you are authentically yourself, that's how you attract the clients that are like meant for you and attracted to you. Because not everyone's going to like resonate or connect with everyone else, right? It's just like friendships or dating, and there's certain personalities that connect better with people. So I think that was really valuable what you shared. And the Nextdoor thing is amazing. Like that is so creative. I like how you thought of that. And it's just, and that's like, and it's like, but you're willing to put in the work, right? And that was the other thing I think is a really important lesson that you said, you know, you ran 300 of these reports. Like, yes, you know, it's like a great idea, but you also executed on it. And I think that's really important.
And it was hard. I mean, that was like a lot of the summer, and I was at conferences, like several conferences, and I had to like sit in the back and just pump out these reports.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 20, I would do a minimum of 20 a day, minimum.
But it resulted in 80,000 net to you. So, I mean, that's a lot. That's amazing lead gen source. And it didn't cost much.
No, it was well worth
time though. So that's awesome. Karen, you are the queen of creative marketing ideas, and I've personally seen a few of them. Like I mentioned, that little map that you created, which is really awesome, and like just the little things you bring that are just so creative and very memorable, I think, to other agents, especially. So, can you discuss a few that have worked really well and yielded good results? And what sparked the ideas? Like, is it just you're that creative, or do you have a source that you're looking to find?
So I will give credit where credit is due. When I attend Tom Ferry conferences, a lot of agents really have really, really good game when it comes to swag materials and just handouts. And then it's just, and then basically I've just found kind of a piece, if you will. Most of the time it's a trifold, it might be a bifold that says, where I share about equal information about myself as I do about my market. It can't just be about me, right? Like I want them to have talking points for the market. So I do have a background in marketing, like I said. So I do design a lot of my own stuff. So I do get ideas here and there, like they're always in my mind. And then some of the swaggy stuff that came from like Pinterest, finding ways to make it work for me, for the volume that I'm doing, for the weight that I could carry in my suitcase. And now, what I'm realizing, and I think this is where a lot of agents get this wrong. Number one, they either don't come to an event with anything. So it's very easy to stand out when you do have a swag piece, but they also kind of spray and pray where I literally had somebody come up to me once. I don't remember what the event was. And he's standing at the end of the aisle, and as people are walking out, he's handing out this piece. And I said to him, I don't want this from you. Like, you don't know my name. I don't know your name. How are you going to be memorable to me? Only because you gave me a lollipop? Like, please, So when agents post like, how many people are going to be attending this event? I'm like, you don't need to bring 450 to 4,000 pieces, right? Like that's not doing anybody any good. So I have learned to really scale back on what I'm bringing and be very strategic with, I'd rather spend more per piece and give it to fewer people. But the one thing that I have on pretty much every piece, specifically for agent to agent stuff, is a QR code directly to my website, not to my business card, because I don't want them to just add me to their phone, but to my website where I say, do you want to join my agent referral network? They then fill out a form. I now have all their contact information. So when I tell my sellers that I have access to these agents, I'm not making this up. These aren't lists that I've bought, which I have bought some, right, for obvious reasons. But when I need to connect with people that I know, I have them in my own database. And at this point, I'm sitting on maybe 1,000 people who have personally put in their information. So that's one side. On the other side, I would say from a marketing branding standpoint, I mean, American Dream TV has been a bit of a game changer for me when it comes to video. I've chosen to go all in on video. I chose that when I got to Park City because I saw that there were very, very few people doing video. And I realized like, well, if they could do it, I can do it. And I'll do it with my own spin. And thankfully, I live in a place where it's all about the lifestyle. So I feature the lifestyle. So when people think of Park City, they think of me, right? And I'm not selling them a primary residence for the most part, right? I'm selling them what does owning a property in Park City mean? It means access to the slopes. It means access to Salt Lake Airport. It means easy in and out versus Aspen or a Vail. Not putting any of those down, but it's just very easy to get to. So American Dream has opened up doors for me and opportunities. And at this point, I've created so much content that it's just a matter of like finding the time to like really create like the marketing pieces to send out to people like, hey, guess what? This house was featured on my show. Do you want your house featured on the show? Or do you want this level of exposure? Right. So right now I'm still in that like building, testing, wait and see how it turns out. But I think I'm onto something with it. And the best I can do is just keep doing it. Stay consistent with it. Any marketing will only work if you have a follow-up plan after step one, which I will admit I went years with like, guess what? I made a really great piece and then it did nothing. Right. So I'm now like committed to not starting something and not having like a step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plan, right?
I am on the same page as you. And again, I'm the first to admit I'm guilty of it. Like I've learned to just call myself out on my BS now so I can recognize it and learn from it and grow from it. But I'm the same way where I was like, I recorded all this content and then I'm like, I have all these ideas and I jot them down, but then I didn't execute on them. And I'm like, and so this same thing, this year is like my year of execution. Like I put myself on a 30-day challenge, which is why you probably see me going crazy on Instagram and Facebook. I'm like, I need to post every single day for 30 days to create a habit. I'm interviewing agents and connecting with people like you once a week, every week for long form content for this YouTube channel. Like it's just putting yourself on that. And that's what I realized, the consistency is key. And that's so important. And like, I love that you share that. Like, and what you said also, like that it's about quality and not quantity. I think that's a big misconception too. When a lot of people go to these events and like are trying to do marketing, they're like, it's all a numbers game. Just spray and pray, like you said, and do all this. And I'm like, no, like treat people like people, actually care and actually connect with people. And that's how you're going to actually close more. And Alex Hormozy, I've been on a Hormozy like binge. He did this like YouTube recently training. It was like, it's an hour and a half, but the gist of it was like, if you want to close more deals, you just have to care the most. And it's that simple. Like care the most, right? Yeah. Just care, connect, and it's that simple. And it's like, I love that you share that because I resonate with that and I agree with that so much. So that is so true. Yeah, I love that.
He's great. I just saw him speak last year. I saw him speak this year.
Yeah. He is so great. And it's just, but yeah, I love all the ideas that you always share about things and like just focusing on that quality and that connection and not just spray it. And I honestly, I hate, and I love to bring this into it, but I also think there is like, I think being a woman, there is a level of like, I don't know, I think it's an asset. And I think because we are more nurturing and we like to connect and nurture relationships. And I think, and I feel like a lot of the guys are like, just spray and pray. It's a numbers game. Like, just close more deals, always be selling. And I think our industry is shifting away from that. I think it's much more of a relationship business and that people care about people that care about them. So, which is a good shift, I think, in this industry.
For sure.
It's away from the used car salesman. Yeah. Like that used car salesman thing doesn't work anymore. Yay. Okay. So let's see. Next stuff is, over the years, I mean, we've talked a lot about marketing, but to survive in this industry, right? It's not just bringing in the business, it's the ability to actually navigate a transaction and get it to close. Because I know a lot of challenges I've heard is like, hey, I have all these leads, but like they can't get it to close. So I'd love to hear about a challenging transaction you've had or situation and how you navigated it successfully by being solution oriented, like I know you are, and being resourceful.
Yes, I would say, I mean, it's so funny after doing all these sales, like there are certainly those that like kind of stick with you. And then there are those that you're just like, you just tuck them away, right? Like they're in the way, way, way back of my brain. So I had to think about this question a lot, but instead of sharing about one transaction, I guess I'll share about like navigating the shifting, like going from having no offers to having multiple offers and how you shift that. Like the goal is obviously to get to the closing table. So in a recent transaction, I'm not going to call it challenging, but you know, I had multiple offers and just the negotiation of that, I think is really challenging, right? Like who's going to get to the closing table? Who are they represented by? Is this person somebody who's going to help me or get in the way, the agent in particular? Is the buyer going to be somebody who's shopping around? Lessons that I've learned, like, is definitely asking more questions and understanding staying in communication with every benchmark and every step of the way to make sure that you're just moving the ball down the line, right? I suck at sports, so let's just call it we're inching towards the goal, right? Like that's just what we're trying to get to. I did have a few really challenging ones that were like related to new developments back in New York, where like the developer basically said, like, my client kept seeing all these issues popping up, and the seller literally was like, listen, we don't think you're a great fit. We're going to give you back your deposit. So that was on closing day. On closing day, after months and months and months, the seller gave back the deposit and said, we don't want you. So lost that deal, which was not great. I've sat at the closing table before where I think the sellers really didn't want to sell, and they really didn't like the price, even though they got the price that they wanted, right? So I think it's all about communication and realizing that not every deal is going to go smoothly. And I look at each deal as a learning opportunity. I learned to ask this question. I learned to look out for this, especially selling here in Park City, where it's so incredibly different. I don't have an attorney, who's got my back now. I have to do all the paperwork myself with a TC, right? I'm not aware of what I don't know what I don't know, right? And I think most agents, their ego gets in the way. And, and if you the more you can kind of set the expectation, communicate, maybe you don't know the answer, but instead of making it up, please don't make it up. Just go say, I'll get back to you, right? And ask your broker. So like I said, there's not one deal. It's just multiple lessons with the challenging deals.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, it's true. It's just communication is key, and being willing to, I think, have those, ask those difficult questions and confront people. And I think that's something that a lot of newer agents especially are scared of. And I know I'm the first to admit, I made all the mistakes. I effed up all of the time. And that's how I learned, where I was their budget is really unrealistic, but I don't want to lose this buyer, right? It's no, you can't make magic happen. You can't change the market dynamics, or, ooh, they want to sell for this, but I don't know if I can do it. You have to manage expectations and communicate that, right? And just be this is really stretching it. We can try, but if we don't get traction, if we don't get activity, if we get negative feedback, let's price drop, right? And just having that honest conversation and saying it in a way that's respectful and communicating openly. I think that's probably the lesson there, that from what you said is what I gathered is communication is key. So yeah, that is a very important
communication lesson. And managing the expectation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Communication and managing the expectation.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it's I learned those lessons all the hard. Karen, what advice would you give to your younger self or newer agent just starting in the industry now?
So if it's okay, I have two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is you have to take breaks. I got told by my manager very early on, I would work every day, 2 weeks in a row. And she realized you're burning out. You've got to go take a break. So I will say that moving to Park City has kind of forced me to do that, because people here, they want the lifestyle. So I actually have to go meet people on the slopes. I have to meet people in the yoga studio. So I have given myself permission to take classes at times when maybe other people are working. And I've learned to be okay with it, right? I might have to get up a little earlier. I might have to go to bed a little bit later, but I've given myself permission to make myself a priority. Right. And very early on, it's very easy to just be I'm just going to run and gun it. And that it's not sustainable. Right. It's very easy to burn out that way. Yeah. And number two, this was told to me by my former manager when I first got in the business. He said, focus on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses. So just focus on the things that you're good at. Obviously, if it's a weakness that you could work on and turn it into a strength, that's great. But if there's something that you truly hate doing that you can't do, I hate doing bookkeeping, anything having to do with numbers, I hate it. So guess what? I outsource it. With my video editing, I know I can do it, but I should not be doing it. So I outsource it. My design work, if there's a chance that I can possibly get somebody else to do it for less, I know I can do it. And it's not a weakness, right? But I should be outsourcing more. So, so I think we as business owners, we as agents are not trained to be business owners. We don't realize that we're business owners. So I think that if you can find the resources, like you said, be resourceful to help take some things off your plate so that you could focus on yourself, your family, your travel, your life, and the things that you like doing best and the money-making things that you should be doing, like taking clients out and meeting with clients and maybe having lunch or dinner with a, huge referral partner, those things trump designing or editing your own stuff, in my mind. Are we losing it?
I think so. I
feel like
it was so good too.
Your computer's like, we're not having this.
Yeah, I was like, I like that. I was like, I heard the work-life balance, I heard the strengths, and then it kind of started cutting out on your last point. So I was like,
focus on your strengths, outsource your weaknesses.
Hello? Okay. I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, it was weird. Because I was like, I said, I don't know. I heard you talk about the work-life balance and the burnout and then the strengths and focusing on that. And then I was like, at the third point, it started cutting out. You had
yes. Focus on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses.
Yep. And then you talked about something else, I thought. No?
Just being resourceful, right? I think that there are certain things that we know we can do. There are things that we might be like, oh, I'm going to try to save money, so I'm going to do it myself, whether it's designing your own marketing materials, doing your own editing. But we should really be focused. If you focus more on refueling yourself with family time, with personal time, with travel time, with gym time, with going out with your referral partners, with making an effort to show homes and go on listing presentations, like those are the high income producing activities. Focus on those things and find resources that could do the rest. Like you'll realize that you have a lot more time than you think you do.
Yeah, definitely true. And I, again, I'm the first to admit, I feel like we resonate and there's so much in alignment where what you're sharing, I'm like, oh my God, I relate to that so much. Like I was the first one, the burnout thing, I did that. I literally worked myself to the point of physical illness. That's how it manifested, where it's I would get physically ill because I was overworking myself. And then I just didn't understand the importance of balance and having that personal life and having that,
you just cut out. I think we got to wrap it.
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap. It's okay. Yeah. So, okay. So I don't know. I usually end with is there any final piece of advice you would share with agents in the industry who want to cultivate a successful career like you have?
You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to pivot. The more you can pivot, which I think a lot of us learned during COVID, if you got into the business during or after, you might not necessarily know what that means. But there is huge value in being committed to seeing through the ups and the downs of the market. And the more of those that you go through, I don't see those as negative things. I think those are positive opportunities to pivot your business, to pivot some of your habits. And the more you can adapt to change, the more successful you'll be.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Karen. I always love connecting with you and learning from you. And I feel like we can literally talk for hours about this subject because you're just a wealth of knowledge and you're always so open and willing to share and collaborate with other agents, which is what I love about you. And I just feel like I learned so much from you. And I've been doing this for so long myself. I've been 12 years in full time. I've been really 20 years unofficially because my mom was in the industry and I was basically her assistant before that and part of the family business. So, and I still feel like I'm learning to this day. And so thank you so much. And if anyone watching this wants to ask any questions, because I feel like Karen is a wealth of knowledge, comment below and we can maybe do a follow-up to this and answer some of your questions, or maybe we can go live on Instagram and answer some of your questions because we're both big on collaborating with and helping other agents because, we have great referral partners and we just honestly, genuinely love building our community and giving back. And if you're in the Angle Invokers network and you are a woman, join the Facebook group, Women of Angle Invokers. And we're going to be posting weekly challenges in there for us all to connect. So thank you so much, and we'll connect soon.